I think we can make a start. Hi everyone. My name is Zishan Bhatt. I am Ivalua's certified solution architect as well as Ivalua team lead at TSM. And today I will be going through very quickly the full source to pay process within Ivalua. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We won't be able to answer them today, but we will make our very best to come back to you on your answers in an email separately. Hopefully you can see the PowerPoint there. I've just got one slide and then I'll show you the product. So Ivalua is a source to pay solution, meaning it's from supply management to sourcing, contracts, and so on towards procurement and invoicing. So all the upstream and downstream both are covered within Ivalua solution. Today I will be focusing on just from supply management, sourcing, contract, e-procurement, and invoices. We also have a payments module, but on this demo we just focus on that. Now the key is Ivalua is one platform. Yeah, it's a unified platform, and which you're going to see during the demo. Is that you can just see all of these objects. You can see it from a supply record, which is, we call it a golden record that we have in the system. So before, let's just go into the product and let's have a look at it. Hopefully you can see the website with our company picture there. So Ivalua is a hosted environment, so anyone can actually connect to that environment as long as you have your single sign-on setup. Suppliers normally use a username and password, but you generally would, as users, you would just log in as single sign-on basically. And once you log into Ivalua, you will have your own homepage, and the homepage defines your role or the activities that you can look at. Like for example, I'm logged in as somebody who's a sourcing manager, and I can see that I've got a few sourcing events, a few contracts I need to look at. There's a few categories I manage, and then also managing suppliers. And then I need to know whether these suppliers are doing well or not doing well. You can see the risk score and the performance score. So all of this is on my homepage as well. And I can also look at the full supplier repository. And the supplier repository is just a list of suppliers that we have in the system, or we have onboarded them in the system. And you can see that not only the status of the supply, it also tells you whether they're qualified for certain categories or not, whether they're up to date with their documentation or not. Are they part of a network, meaning that they could be subcontractor relationships with other suppliers, in terms of the risk, in terms of their performance, as well as ESG commitments. What is that, as well as their spend. Because the full source to pay, you'll have the invoice is coming through, you'll know what the spend is. And if we look at a supplier record, so I could just search in the search prompt there, or I could have searched it here as well. But you can see that it's telling me there's a supplier called Dell, because I tried to search for that, and there's a few documentation, contracts, invoices, orders, and so on and so forth. So you can see why it's so powerful, Ivalua, because of the one system. And if I just open up that supply record, you'll see that the supply record has its own homepage, so to speak, or landing page we call it, which kind of tells you at a glance where we are with the supply. So in terms of the spend that we've done so far, these are KPIs, drillable. I can look at the data behind that if I want to, where I am with the onboarding of the supplier. This supplier is an active supplier, so they would have went through all the onboarding. So you can see that from this chart here. Any linked objects, so any running sourcing event, any active contract against that supplier, any price list, orders, any issues with this supply, any improvement plans that you may have with their supply. So all of that is in one window, because it's is one golden record. From there, you can actually look at all of that information for that supply. We talked about key documentation. You can, within the supply management solution, you can also look at that. You can also look to qualify the suppliers. And we mentioned about risk and all the other information. But the key is the onboarding workflow. So you would onboard a supplier. It goes through an enrollment prep. We make sure the documents are valid. If there anyone else needs to be involved, we make sure we send that information to them and they approve that supplier. And only when the enrollment has been approved, we will either send it to risk assessment or due diligence based on the type of supply. So if there are, let's say, tier one supply, they may need to go through a due diligence and risk assessment. Otherwise, they don't need to. They just get activated. Now, how do we get suppliers to onboard? And the best way to actually get them to onboard is using uh, uh, getting them to actually do it. So what you can do is you can send them invitation, and I could just click on that. I can just put in their name and email address. That's all I need. So once I've done that, they'll get an email with a link to actually start doing the onboarding. And all it is, it's a page, it's a public page. Okay, so they go on there, they put in their information, their address, uh, the unique identifier. So what this means is if I'm in the United Kingdom, maybe select that, you can see it changes to VAT number because that's a unique one. If I'm in, I don't know, in United States, maybe, then they have an EIN number or SSN number. So it adopts, and once they've provided the information, key information, and then what will happen is you get an email alert. You'll see all the registration come through. You'll see an alert in here. Also, the registrations come through here. You can look at all the registrations. You can see some are created, some are rejected. So all of that information is there. If I and why they rejected, it will tell us. So it does a duplicate check. So this is the supplier that we try to register. You can see, and then the key is the progress behind that. Yeah. So it will come to you if we need to create it. If it's rejected, it will go back to the supplier and they would have to resubmit the registration or talk to whoever asked them to actually start the registration because they may already be in the system already. Okay, and the rest of the process is the same. Once the supplier is created in the system, they go into a registration stage. What this means is they have been accepted as a supplier to do the onboarding. So they just created in the system and they will go through this onboarding again. Yeah, which I looked at initially. So that's how, in a nutshell, we can do onboarding. The next bit in is you may want to do, sourcing events against those suppliers or prospect suppliers. So Ivalua have a sourcing module that went through very quickly. I'm now logged in as somebody who's a sourcing manager, and I can see I've got some tasks, but I've also have things related to the sourcing project. I could either go through from this KPI here because these are the ones that I'm running already, or I could just go to the browse screen, which I'm going to do. And you can see all of these different sourcing events that are running, and they are in different processes. Some I've got a lot created, some is, it's on hold, maybe this one. So I can look at it from here, or I can go into drill into it quickly. Now, before I drill into a sample project, I just want to make sure we understand that Ivalua can actually support different types of sourcing initiatives. So you can see a strategic type of sourcing event. Those of you who are maybe interested in sealed bid process, mainly for government organization, it's double and triple envelope. Or you could just have a spot bid. Spot bid is like, just give me 3 quotes. Yeah, that's it. It's very simple. Now, the one I'm going to go through is a strategic sourcing project. So I've got this PPE equipment I need to buy. Maybe I can set up a sourcing project. If I want to do some internal requirements, I can do this using this. Otherwise, I could just go straight into RFX section here. And in the RFX section, I would have the option to either create an RFI, RFQ, or RFP. But I can create different types of RFPs, and also I have different options to select. Like, for example, I could get this option ticked, meaning that the supplier would need to provide an NDA before they can actually bid for it. You may allow the internal buyers to actually bid on behalf of suppliers because they might not be able to use the system. They might send you an email, so there are offline things that you can do. But the key is when you do the RFP, you have a price grid. So you've created this grid here, and you've said I want the supplier to provide the unit price, amount, and the lead time, and that's it. They don't see some of the other fields that I have. Like, for example, I have a reference price and a target price. I'm going to use that to actually see how much savings I've made. The supplier doesn't see that. I can also share any documentation that I want them to actually look at, and I can also invite the suppliers that they need to. Uh, those need to actually engage on this round. Maybe I can have unlimited round, unlimited blocks in the system as well. And once I've sent this to the supplier, I can then monitor. I've got a closed one I can show you. I can then monitor the activity against that RFP. So you can see whether they've actually logged in, did they do anything, did they decline, or did they submit a proposal. All of that is here as a like a bird's eye view for me to look at. Did they answer the questions or not? I also have, once they provided all the bids, I also have a analyze and award section where I can actually award somebody. I can run different scenarios, which will tell me how much saving I've made. Obviously, on this one example, I haven't made much saving, but it will also give me whether I've made any savings. You can see that I haven't made any savings on this one just because it's very competitive market, I guess. If this was not good enough, you can also do a reverse auction. Which Ivalua support different types of auctions, Dutch, English, Japanese, you name it, they just support that. Off the back of the analyze and award, once you awarded it, you can then, off the back of that, create a contract. And because it's one system, it will just copy all of the information from your RFP, the prices that you agreed and everything, can flip it into a purchase contract. And next, we'll just look at the contract next. So now I'm logged in as somebody who's a contract manager, and you can see I've got a slightly different view. I can see how much I've spent against a contract, how much of the contract amount is remaining that I'm managing. I can also see contracts that are running, contracts that are under e-signature, maybe, all of these KPIs. I also have my contracts homepage. That is kind of tells me just my contracts that are expiring soon or that I need to renegotiate, contracts that are underutilized. So all of these KPIs can be used as well. But similar to supply, I have like a browse, which is like a supply contract repository, similar to supply repository. And it's telling me the validity of the contract, whether it's been signed yet or not, what's the value of the contract, start and end dates, and so on and so forth. Okay. And what I can do is, if I just go into one contract, I have a similar theme in Ivalua where I have a landing page for the contract as well, which is telling me global value, key dates, consumption, and linked object. Because obviously, when we talk about consumption, it's actually linked to a purchase order. Okay, and if I look at that, it will tell me all the purchase orders that are linked to that contract. I'll just refresh this page again. It'll give me all the orders that are linked, and not just the orders. It will also tell me any linked receipts or linked invoices. So you have all of that consumption against that. When we talk about key dates, you can see that not only I can define start and end dates, I can also define the renewal type. So I can say whether it's going to automatically renew or there's no renewal or renew with negotiable term. And the key is either the period we define or the date. And on these dates, we will get the notifications from the system to tell you that you need to start negotiating the contract, or you need to send a notification out to the supplier because you haven't negotiating the contract. Again, all the price list would have come through from the sourcing event automatically. Any key terms you can maintain on this here as well, or you can also maintain it in the documentation. So Ivalua supports the full redlining of a contract. So if I just open this up in another window, you can upload a document, and that document can go through a redlining process. Okay, you can see all of this. You can have changes done on this contract. You can see I've got changes. You can also use AI to draft clauses. So I could ask the AI agent to actually draft me a clause or proofread a clause, and it will do that for you, just like ChatGPT. It can do all of that But the key is it's also looking the data within the system, so the clause library that we have in the system, and it can then, based on that, can suggest what clause needs to be done. Once you draft the contract, it will actually go through a workflow, meaning somebody drafts it might need to go to legal to actually review it. It might go to external review, meaning supply. Once you have agreed between, then it will go to e-signature and the document is signed. Okay. And then Ivalua can also extract key obligations from that document. You can see all the key obligations, the key terms been extracted by the OCR engine that we have in the system. And those of you who are interested in DORA, we also have a DORA add-on which will basically monitor all the contracts that are linked to the DORA regulation for financial service. Okay. Okay, very quickly now, how do we consume a contract then? Yeah, so Ivalua downstream, people, you want to make sure that people are buying against contract, buying against agreed prices, or at least against an agreed supply. You know, you have a qualified supply. So I'm logged in as somebody who's a requisitioner. He doesn't know anything about upfront due diligence. You know, they just want to know, they want to buy a laptop or something. Yeah. So what they can do is they can create an intake. And if I just show you my intake homepage, I have different types of intake in the system. I may have requested a sourcing event to be created or a contract to be created. But in this example, I just want, let's say, maybe a laptop I want to buy, and I don't know what to do with it. So what I can do is I can go into my browse, and I can see various different intakes, you know, and I can create that based on that. But I'm going to just create one from scratch. You can see the different types. The one I'm going to select is buy something, but you can see there are different types. I can request a new supply to be set up in the system. I can, if I have a quotation from a supply, I could just start from a quotation, meaning that I could just upload a quotation and it will automatically create a requisition for me. But for now, I'm just going to use buy something, meaning that I want to just buy something. Maybe it's a laptops for new starters. And I can define the description. I can say it's Dell or IBM, please, with key specs or whatever you want to define. You can do that. And then you have two options. You can either add it from an agreed catalog or a contract prices. So I could go and search. So I can say, sorry, if I just select add an item, which is the catalog. So I can say, okay, tell me if there are any laptops, agreed laptops prices. So I can see there are agreed. So I've got one from Dell Inc. So maybe I'll just add 5 of these. And there are some laptop bags as well. So at this stage, maybe I just want the laptop. So I'm going to add them to my shopping basket. And if I don't find anything in the catalog, I can also do a non-catalog. So I can say, okay, I didn't find, let's say, the laptop bag. So laptop bags, and I want 5 of these. Roughly, maybe I don't want to spend more than £100, and I need it by this date. Okay, and it's this is the category. Maybe I'll just put it to computers because it's that spend. Okay, so I'm gonna add this. You can see I've got one which is a agreed price, one which is a non-catalog, and I don't know who to buy it from, which is fine. I can save this, and then I can submit this intake. So I'm going to do that. As I submit this, it will create a requisition in the system. If it needs to go to an authorization, it will do that. Okay, but in my demo system, I don't have that configured. But it can also have like my line manager authorization to sense check that, or do Zishan really need a laptop or not? Maybe I've already had one recently. Okay. But as soon as my line manager has approved it, it will create a requisition, and then it can go through a DOA, if needed. So you can see from an end user point of view, I can see what the process is going to be possibly. So because there's a non-catalog item, procurement might need to do an RFP, okay, to actually get a best price. It could be a very quick 3 quotes, yeah. Once the purchase order is converted, I'll have visibility over that, as well as when it's receipted, once in invoice. So I can see all of that. I can even message approvers. So you can see a setting with my manager to approve. and then they can authorize it. So if I open up that requisition, they would have received an email. I'm logged in as an admin, so I'm going to just automatically authorize it as an admin, but normally they will get an email, they log in, and they will authorize it, okay? If I look at this requisition, you can see this is what I've added. It automatically converted into a requisition. It's also telling me it's within the budget, so I'm well within the budget of the value, so I have no problem. I can also see there's a workflow behind that. It's sitting with my manager. Once they've approved it, it may go to the purchasing department, but in my demo system, I haven't done that. So hopefully it'll just convert it into a purchase order, but you'll see it will spot the issue, okay? So once it's converted, I'm expecting this to be converted into two different orders because one order is for Dell Inc. The other one, we don't even know who the supplier is, okay? Now, procurement could have come in and actually done the RFP process and specified the supplies. That is also an option, but just for a quick demonstration, I just wanted to show you how I can just simply create a purchase order and define the supply there, okay? So hopefully we'll just convert it into two purchase orders for me in a minute. This is my demo environment. Sometimes it can be slow. There you go. So now if I look at this, it's converted into two orders. You can see one for Dell Inc. where there was a supply. The other one, I don't have a supply. And that's why it's saying there's an order without a supply and you need to select one, okay? So if I open up this one, this supply order, you'll see that the supplier is missing and that's why it's with me. There's a blocking alert. It's telling me it's with me. So I'm going to ignore this one for now for testing. If I just refresh this one now, you'll see that two orders has been converted and you can see the process is at the order stage, okay? And now this stage supply will have that and the supplier can send us invoices against that or advance shipping notice if they want to. What I'm going to do is for simplicity, I'm going to go in as an AP user. So if I go into as an AP user, if I just show you the homepage, so this is like an AP user homepage where I need to process something. Ivalua can be set up with a mailbox, meaning that you can send suppliers can send emails and then you can read that mailbox. That process is there. But the ideal process is that your suppliers can just flip the purchase order into an invoice through a portal. So they can come in, look at the purchase order. So this is a purchase order I've sent. Okay, I could just flip it into a receipt, advance shipping notice, or I can just invoice it. So at this stage, I'm just going to invoice it. Let's say the supplier hasn't sent us any goods or services, but they're just sending us an invoice. So I'm going to just flip it in. I'm going to put in the invoice number and the invoice date. And you can see it's actually flipped the purchase order into an invoice. All of the information has been added from the purchase order. All I need to do is let me save this and then I'll submit this. And when I submit this, I could also add a legal document. But for just simplicity for now, I'm just going to submit it and the system will create a digital copy for me, which is completely acceptable in some countries as a digital copy. So I'm going to do that. And you can see I can use AI to do the coding if it was like a non-PO invoice, for example. Okay. Now I can also have chat with my supplier. So I could have, if I wanted to, I can talk to them, ask them questions. I can also look at any issues with this invoice. So it looks like the invoice number is already used. So I'm just, for testing, I'm going to make one, and I'm going to submit it. And as soon as I submit this, you can see it's already telling me there's a warning. The warning is that there is some issue with the receipting. Okay, there's a gap that I don't have a delivery in the system. Okay, so what will happen is it will go through a workflow like any workflow we have in the system. You can see that it checked whether this invoice was compliant. Those errors that we were getting because of the compliance. If it's compliant, then the system will archive it for auditors, and then it will check whether it was a non-PO invoice. If it was a non-PO invoice, it would go to a DOA. Okay, if it's a PO invoice, it will come and look at whether it matches with the PO. In terms of value, it did match, but there is no receipt in the system, and that's why it's sitting with the business to actually look at it and do the receipt. Once they've done the receipt, or they could just do a two-way match, maybe because they just want to pay the invoice, and the receipt might come later, or maybe it's a service. That's fine. I'm not going to receipt it. I'm just going to say I'm okay to actually pay for this invoice because I raised the purchase order. And once they've confirmed they're happy for this invoice to be paid, the status will change to okay to pay. At this stage, we will send this invoice into your finance system. If you were not using our payment system module, if we were using the payment module, it will just go into the payment module for it to be processed. Yeah. So in this example, it's gone into your ERP system, setting for this to be paid. Once you've done the payment run, this will automatically progress to the payment, and then it will actually mark the invoice as paid, meaning that the invoice has been fully paid. And if I look at the invoices, you'll see that you have different invoices in different statuses. Some are paid, some are under authorization, some are with business review, some are canceled, and so on and so forth. So that kind of very quickly covers the full source to pay. And just at the end, I just wanted to show you Ivalua has reporting engine as well with this. So you can see various different out-of-the-box reporting. I can see different type of KPIs. I can even subscribe to these emails, meaning that people who do not come into the system quite often, you can just subscribe to this report, and it will just on the internal, it will automatically send them an email with the report. If I look at another example, you'll see that this is an invoice analysis report. We have a different type of KPIs to spend against, and also any KPIs on time, late invoices. There's one last one I want to show you, and then we'll conclude, which is in the contract. If I look at pre-signature, and this can give you an idea of what sort of KPIs we can do. You can see there's a funnel. It's telling me on average, I mean, just ignore the number of days. It's my demo environment, but it's telling me these are the average number of days it takes you to actually draft a contract and go through from drafting the contract to reviewing the contract to actually have it finalized. Yeah, so you can have those KPIs in the system. That concludes it. I will be looking at any messages. If there are any messages, feel free to send us messages through an email, and we will come back to you. Hope this was useful for you guys, this session. So looking forward for you to join any of the sessions that we're going to be running very soon, and you will see those in the invites. So thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.